Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first annual or first whatever candidate forum for discussion. The two people I think we all know and familiar with who both are interested in representing us in Carmel. My name is Gordon Stewart. I'm the publisher of Phillipstown.info and a paper. And I'm happy that you're all here on a rainy night. The idea is that this will be mostly a conversation between the two. That's why I'm not sitting in the middle and doing a down-market Jim Lehrer imitation. He's actually an old friend. Actually, we co-moderated those things together. But so I picked up a few tips from him, which is mostly to say as little as possible. We will probably do this for about a half an hour or so, and then open it up to some questions from the floor, and hope that the basic amenities of civility and comity and respect for other people's views and things will prevail. If they do not, I will be compelled to attempt to enforce them one way or another. So I'd like to begin with some opening comments that I guess each of you probably have. And by mutual agreement, Barbara is going first.
Here I go.
Go.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming tonight. I grew up in Putnam Valley. I have lived and worked in Putnam County since the early 70s. My husband and I raised our children in Phillipstown. I worked in a small business on Main Street in Cold Spring and understand the issues that are facing our county. I realize that it should always be people before politics. My experience on the Phillipstown board in the 4 years I have volunteered on county committees bear this out. I have learned one thing through all my experiences. We must all work together. My record shows I listen, I work well with all sides to solve our community's challenges. Anyone who has worked with me when I was a councilwoman knows that I have the ability to consider other points of view, balance the debate, and build consensus. I have a quiet strength. I have heard that some people think that I'm too gentle. I suggest that they have a conversation about how great a fight I can put up. They should speak to my husband, Tom. He doesn't exactly see it that way. I'm very excited about the opportunity to represent District 1. Given my ongoing work with the county, I am in a position to hit the ground running when I am elected on November 6th. I promise you I will work tirelessly for my constituents. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for being here tonight on this rainy evening. I'm sure you would all love to be somewhere else. I want to thank Phillipstown.info and the paper for holding this evening's event. I am an attorney by training, and I also have a background in government. And one of the great things about our government is democracy. And not just plain old democracy, but what has been called participatory democracy. It is where first you have candidates like the two you have here this evening who are willing to put themselves out. And let me tell you, I've walked many parts of the town knocking on doors, and that is not easy. But it is an important part of the process. But as the saying goes, it takes two to tango. And you are the other half of the dance routine, because it is your responsibility at the end of the day to pick the best candidate. And having worked in government, in the private sector, and in not-for-profit, but especially in government, one of the most difficult tasks is to get good people to either run for elected office and take the shots. But I'm willing to do that. I have served on the town board as well. I have worked for a very large government down in the southern tip of this great state known as New York City. So I do know the ins and outs of government, both at the local level and at the state level. But setting that aside, my wife and I moved to Phillipstown 22 years ago because we found this is a place that we wanted to set our own roots. We could have gone anywhere we wanted to, but we chose Phillipstown. And it is a great town to live, and it's a great county to live in, despite the many challenges that we have. And I look forward to this evening's discussion on the issues, and at the end of the day, it would be my honor and a privilege to represent not only the residents of Phillipstown, but the section of Putnam Valley that is part of LD1. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Before going into questions, I would like to set an example here of something I almost neglected to do. Unfortunately, was not embarrassed during the course of it. That is to put my device on mute so that it will not ring while everybody else is speaking. So for those of you who forgot to do this like I did, this is your chance. I know Jim would have turned his off, so I'm going to pretend it. Let's see. Why don't I begin by throwing out a question that began with things I began to hear when our family moved here not all that long ago, which was a refrain that I've heard over and over again. And that is basically that we, the citizens of Phillipstown District 1, I guess, are kind of disadvantaged by the revenue we send and what we receive. This is one of the first things I heard. So it occurred to me after a while to ask, well, are there some numbers to support this? And what I've been told is that we pay in Phillipstown to the county about $5.7 million in property taxes. That seems to be a verifiable number. And it's been estimated that our sales tax portion is somewhere around $2,000 or $3,000. Legislature Putnam may actually have a better figure than that. If he does, I'd ask him to share it with us. Is that about?
You're about in the right.
In the right thing? Great. We've come around so far, so good. So that adds up to, let's say, around $8 something million goes that away, goes east. Then, in terms of what comes west, there's a feeling that it's rather substantially less than that when the various things are added up. Sheriffs and services for the aging and the county roads and other things. So one question I would have is, for each of you, A, do you feel this to be the case? And if you do, if you become our representative there, how would you propose to deal with this? Let's go in reverse from who started and start with you.
Sure. In terms of the issue that you're talking about, it is a position that I've been very clear on, which is revenue tax sharing. That is basically the sales taxes and property taxes that are raised in the various towns should, in some form, especially the sales tax, should come back in some form to the various towns. I've spoken to quite a number of town board members, not only in Phillipstown, but around the county, and many of them do support that idea because that is where the commercial sales tax dollar is basically raised. But yet what happens is that the county takes that money and does not want to share it. And I always hear, well, it cannot be done. Well, if Westchester can do it, and Rockland can do it, and Dutchess County can do it, there is absolutely no reason why Putnam County can't do it. Because I don't think they're any smarter than us in those other counties. And if we want to raise the white flag and say we can't do it, then we could at least have conversations with them. As I mentioned, I worked for the city of New York many years ago after I graduated from law school, and I worked for former Mayor Ed Koch. And one of the things that I learned as a very impressionable young man who had just graduated law school is one day I went in to brief him on an issue. And it was a group of us, and many of you know Ed Koch and the character that he is. And we had this very high-level senior person come in to also brief the mayor, and he started talking about all the reasons why he couldn't do something on a particular issue. And Ed Koch was uncharacteristically quiet, especially in a briefing. I turned to one of my colleagues and we kind of looked at each other. At the end of this diatribe, Ed Koch turned to this very high-level person, looked him square in the eye and said, "You're right, you can't do it. I will find someone who can." And that has stayed with me all of my professional career. So when someone tells me I can't do it, my goal in life is to prove them wrong. And I will go over as your legislator, and we will figure out how to do it.
Okay, sales tax. We've been talking about this for years. There's no simple solution. Yes, we should get our share of sales tax. Other counties do, as my colleague here, friend here, opponent here, has said, Dutchess County does and Rockland does, and they have been for a while. But unfortunately, they are now repealing that because they can't balance their budgets. Sure, we could go over there and fight for our share, but who are we fighting for? Who are we going to share it with? We are collecting more sales tax than ever, not because our businesses on Main Street are doing booming business. It's because of the price of gasoline and fuel. Every gallon of gasoline is taxed. I was at the Appalachian Market, I'm sure you all go there. I was waiting in line next to a woman with an SUV with two little kids dressed in soccer uniforms in the back. It cost her $75 to fill up her tank. I almost fell over. I fill up my tank twice a week. Can you imagine doing that twice a week? So again, I say to you, share with whom? I say, let's share with the woman at the gas pump, rather. My first priority when I get over to Carmel is to reduce the tax on gasoline. You do that, and that's going to hit everybody's pocketbook, including mine, including yours, including that poor soccer woman. Let's give it back.
Yeah, just follow up on this tax thing for a moment. So I understand it takes, and there are people here who know that state and local government far better than I do. I understand it would take a special act of the state legislature to allow this to happen, or they have to do something to let it happen.
The county tax.
The county would.
It would be the county tax that would be reduced.
No, but there's a procedural matter, I think, involved when sales tax is to be shared. It has to go. But it's largely formality. I can't imagine some legislator in Onondaga or Canandaigua saying, no, you can't do it or something. So there is some obstacle to doing it. I couldn't quite tell from Steve, I got the fact that you would definitely be pushing, whether it was against all odds or not, for this to happen. Or is there something that you're...
Well, you know, when you share the sales tax, who are you sharing it with? Does part of the sales tax go to the municipality? Does it go to the village? How does that get to the people that are struggling every day?
Good question. What do you think?
By doing it at the bottom.
Into the gas tax.
At the gas tax.
Okay.
That's a start.
Okay. And moving back to the, when we get to public questions, Tom, we're going to be happy to, why don't you come back to that? Because this, I think, is...
Excuse me, could
everybody... look for things that we
could everybody project for those of us sitting in the back?
Okay, I'll try to do a little better with that. Yeah. And we are, I think, of the things that we would be looking to our legislator, after all, we're not voting for supervisor or mayor or anything else, we're voting for someone to represent us in Carmel. and this would be an important part of it, so come back to this in your question. But same with the property tax. It would seem just on the property tax alone, there might be an argument of an imbalance. And those are numbers we do know, and those are numbers we do know come from us. So I'd like to just push you both a little further and get a sense of what do you feel on just the property tax and our, basically it comes down to, I think, what we all want to know. Do you really think we're getting a fair shake in Carmel? Ever since I moved here, as I said, people have said we get, there's an obscene word for it I won't use. We get the, whatever it is. So do you feel this is true just on property tax alone? And is there something, if that is true, we can do about it? If it isn't true, we should stop whining. What do you think?
Well, I am of the belief that we don't get a fair share. And I have been very strong about that. In terms of the property tax, according to the U.S. Census, we are the 12th highest property tax county in the United States.
Wow.
Let me repeat that. Number 12 in 2012. We didn't get that way by accident. We got that way through a lot of mismanagement and governments, including the county government, sticking their hands in our pockets and constantly coming back to the well every time they could not deal with the issues because politicians love to take the easy way out. And it is much easier to raise taxes than it is to actually solve problems. And that's why I'm running, because I'm there to solve problems. And hopefully throughout the conversation tonight, I'll be able to talk about some of the areas where I think we can really hold the feet of the county legislature and the county executive.
Our budget, the county budget is $141 million. Yes, we need to keep a close eye on that. What people don't realize is that 73% of that budget goes to unfunded state mandates. 73%, that's huge. Which leaves only 27% for discretionary spending, which would be operating costs for the county. That would include law enforcement, road patrol, advanced life support, economic development, all of these things. We must take control of what we can control by effectively managing our assets. I will work with the county executive because I believe this administration is on the right path. And we will fight in Albany to get mandate relief. That is the big problem, I think.
Okay.
Can I add? Yes, there is no question that state mandates is a huge problem. It has been for probably over 30 years, maybe even longer than that, when you accumulate all of the mandates that have been passed down by the state. But again, you could whine all you want about state mandates. But I'll tell you right now, unless there is a crisis, or if some county or city goes bankrupt, the state legislature is not going to do anything. And that's because it's a great deal for them. It would be, for me, like having Barbara's credit card.
Oh, you don't want that.
Well, play along. I would have the opportunity to spend as much as I want, and Barbara would be required to pay the bill, no matter what. Why would I want to change that system? Because the rules are in my favor. So the legislature isn't going to do that. So let me propose 3 ideas that I have. First, let's look at 1 or 2 mandates. Let's go up to the legislature and work with the Association of Counties. And I know Steve Aquario, the executive director, actually people used to confuse us, Rosario Aquario. And rather than saying, let's remove the mandate, let's work on giving counties a little bit more authority to control the decision-making process. Because maybe Dutchess County can do it one way and save money, maybe Putnam County could do it another way and save money. So you're not threatening the state legislature. The second is, well, let's run programs more efficiently. Well, what does that mean? The state comptroller in 2008 did an audit on non-emergency Medicaid transportation. And he found that the county had spent in two areas almost a total of about $100,000 over what they should have. Now, in this economy, we cannot afford to overspend on anything. If that program had been run properly, we could have saved $100,000 and maybe thrown that money back into some reserve fund or back to the taxpayer. Here's my third idea. You know, we've got a lot of good county employees. As much as county and government employees take a hit, we've got some good people. How about if those on the front line were incentivized to come up with ideas to save the county money for running that program? And if they do, how about if we gave them a $1,500 or $2,000 bonus or $2,500 bonus? If they save the county money through ideas that they have. It is done in other jurisdictions. In the state of Arizona, the state has saved millions because they talk to their employees and they get the ideas. So those are three ideas that I have where I think even under the crushing weight of mandates, we can still deal with some of those issues.
Do you want to say anything more on this topic? And then
Well,
I'm going to move to something else after this.
Just briefly, I think you're cutting Mary Ellen O'Dell a little short. She has already been working tirelessly
Louder, please.
to cut a lot of the waste that's been in place in Carmel for 20 years. She has condensed offices. She has let people go. She has stayed within the 2% cap. She has not given raises. So I really think you have to give her a little credit for this. And although I'm sure some of your points are well taken, but this administration is definitely headed in the right direction.
Good, let's move on to one or two other things, then I'm going to open it up, because I sense there are people here tonight better able to ask questions than I am. So I'm kind of lazy, so I'm going to let you do it. Speaking of laziness, I found that there were, when I was kind of at a loss with people that I didn't know very well who live here, that it wasn't very hard to start a conversation. All I had to do was say things like Dunkin' Donuts, and then people would just get there. I didn't have to worry about it, or one thing or another. One of those words I've learned that all I have to do is say it, and then I can just sit back and, and let things flow, is Butterfield. So I think that's all I really have to say, so I don't have to construct some fancy question. So what do you think about Butterfield, the county, and your view on it? Because by now you better have one, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you've heard them all. So what do you make of it? You want to go first this time?
Sure, I'd love to. Butterfield has been vacant for 20 years.
And do this loudly as you can.
It's an eyesore. Let's not miss this opportunity. We are complaining that we don't get enough services from the county. This is a prime place to put services. The county is willing to come in and set up offices here, satellite offices of the clerk, emergency services, the sheriff, veterans, only to name a few. My opponent at our last forum suggested that this was a village issue. This is a community issue. This affects all of us. We're complaining constantly about town hall. Richard, what is town hall like? It's awful. We need a new municipal building, desperately. They're cramped in there. It's not handicapped accessible. It's an old building. It's built, when was it built? 18-something? 1878. We need a new place to work. Our seniors need a new senior center. How many years have we been saying that these poor people need a place, a decent place to meet? It's imperative that we do this finally for these seniors. Back to the municipal building a little bit. For the last 3 years, I've been trying to consolidate the courts. We have 3 courts within 1 mile. That would save so much in our tax dollars. It would be amazing. This is a tax-positive project. We will collect $300,000 in property tax from this one project. And we won't have to give them any services. They'll take care of their own garbage, they'll take care of their own plowing, they'll take care of their own maintenance. There won't be any school children in the school. Julia Butterfield was a wonderful woman, and we will never forget her. I think we should take that beautiful archway that's in the old building and put it into the new municipal building. What's wrong with that? Let's name it Butterfield Center. Let's put a kiosk. Let's get the Historical Society involved and do a kiosk with the history of the Butterfield Hospital. I think Julia would like the idea.
Good.
Well, I certainly agree with Barbara that this is a golden opportunity, and these kinds of opportunities do not come by every day. What I did say at the previous debate that we had is that at the end of the day, it is the village, because they are a separate government entity, that it is their decision, and the county should not be stepping in to try and tell the village what to do, because that would be hypocritical. We complain that the state tells us what to do, and we complain about that. So I don't think it is right for us to tell the village what to do. But, again, I have a couple of ideas. The county has said that its intention is to move offices into Butterfield if it gets built. As my Italian grandfather used to say, talk is cheap. Because I can commit to that, and if Butterfield never gets built, no sweat off my back as the county. I played nice, and I look like a nice guy. But that's not enough for me. I think there has to be a plan B. And plan B could be, well, you know, we have some empty space in this town. Why doesn't the county, and again, let's start small. Let's take maybe 1 or 2 agencies. Let's see if we can create a satellite office, maybe for aging, or for veterans, or it doesn't matter, DMV, so that people here in Phillipstown and Putnam Valley don't have to go to Peekskill or Beacon for licensing and other transactions. And let's move them in, again, small, maybe 3 days a week, so that residents of Phillipstown and Putnam Valley don't have to go over to Carmel. We should be having that discussion. And again, I go back to what I learned with Ed Koch. It's a can-do attitude. Let's see what we can do. And if Butterfield is built, those offices then can easily be transferred over to a Butterfield and then expanded. But the county will have made a solid, not only commitment, but a solid entrance into the town through even just a temporary office or offices.
Okay, I've got one more for now, then I'd like to hear what your questions are, and then we'll come back for maybe one more closing statement. And this is one that I hear a kind of a charge in the air about, that it's a little awkward, but why not just put it out there, that we do have political parties. We try hard not to make political affiliations define ourselves above all other human characteristics, and we try, I hope, not to define others that way. Just as we don't define them by color of skin or religious belief or other orientations, I try not to define other human beings by what their political views might be. They are more than their political views. Nonetheless, we do have a system of 2 political parties. So the question that often hangs in the air when this topic comes up about these 2 contenders is, all right, one is a Democrat, one's a Republican. We have a legislature which has a certain makeup. So the question kind of hangs in the air, I just want to put out there, is why would you believe in each case that you, Barbara, as a member of the majority party, would be better able to represent us as Phillipstowners, because after all, it's a very selfish, narrow interest we have here. We're electing our advocate in Carmel. So why would you believe that? And Steve, from your point of view, why would you believe that a member of the minority party would be most effective as our representative, agent, getter of stuff, which is why we send people to legislators, one way or the other. And this question kind of hangs in the air, so let's just have at it. Let's just get it out there. What do you think?
Well, what I think is people before politics. I pride myself. When I was on the town board in Phillipstown, Richard, I think you can attest to this, I got along with the Democratic Party. I got along with my fellow council people. I didn't look at them as Democrats or Republicans. They were the town board. We worked together to find solutions. And when I get over to the county, regardless if the majority is Republican, I'll still treat Sam Oliverio, the only Democrat, just the way I would treat my fellow.
Yes, I'm a Democrat, but as one of my favorite Republican mayors of New York City, Fiorello LaGuardia, once said that when it comes to cleaning the streets, there is no Democratic or Republican way of doing it. I think that's a pretty good philosophy, that at the end of the day, while for campaigning and politics, our system is based on two parties, but if I'm elected, I've got to set that aside. At the end of the day, do what is best for Phillipstown, for Putnam Valley, and for the county. But never underestimate the power of one voice. And I witnessed it last week. A huge debate on a cut in the budget that the county executive included for $650,000 for transit. And this transit would have impacted senior citizens, people with special needs, people who work, who have to get to work, who do not have a car, and who would rather work than collect a government check. Well, Sam Oliverio, and Barbara was there as well, led the fight. The Democrat on a majority-held legislature led the fight to put that money back. He was one person. So one person and one voice can make a difference. And the committee voted to put it back in. Now, whether it goes to the full legislature and gets back in is another story. But that was one voice. And I was there at that meeting. And I was not intending to speak, but I did. Because my DNA does not allow me to sit silent when I see something unfair. And I acknowledge that I was from Phillipstown, and that in that instance, that issue did not impact us. But I said it was unfair because of the population that was being targeted, and that all of those citizens deserve the same quality of life that I have in Phillipstown. But then I further said, there'll come a day, we are one county, and we have our own transportation needs, and we will have to work to address those needs on our side of the county. And I hope that they will support us as we support them.
Okay, let's find out what's on your minds. Tom, I know you got something to say here.
We spent more than a half an hour in a village board meeting about 3 months ago, and the rhetoric was hot, people were hot, and I just saw, this guy wants to interview you. Are you a member, are you a lobbyist for the fracking industry?
No. I am very proud of what I do. I have been doing it for 21 years.
Are you a lobbyist?
I am a senior executive. I have my certificate as a certified executive association manager. Do I advocate? Yes, just like the Chamber of Commerce advocates, or the State Business Council advocates, or the teachers union advocates, or nurses advocate. I do the same thing for an industry that employs over 50,000 people in the business of chemistry, about another 50,000 people in the plastics industry. These are very good jobs, and again, I will give you an example of why I'm proud to represent this industry. I have the pleasure of going into my facilities and actually talking to the employees and not the corporate folk. And I met this absolutely lovely woman, African-American great-grandmother, working in this facility in Westchester for 42 years. You see, because my industry doesn't create jobs, we create careers. So, and we create skills that people can use. They tend to stay in our industry, which I think is one of the highest compliments. I've been with my industry with my association for 22 years, my boss for 25, his assistant for 24. I think that is a testament to the fact that we are a good industry, despite what some others would say.
And that is all on this topic that I'm going to entertain. The purpose of this forum is not our views of various industries and what they do or do not do in the United States. It's who's going to represent us in Phillipstown. We've heard now this topic raised. It's been addressed. So those of us who have to cope with living here and find a place to park, all the stuff that goes into living here, that's what I'm mostly interested in.
Well, we're voting against fracking in Phillipstown.
Tom, I've said,
and if
you
he's
have
for it,
had,
then
Tom,
I want to know.
Tom, as I've said, we've given you the opportunity to raise this question. It has been raised. I want to return this now to things that are of direct local concern to people who live here. No one or no industry, this is not a great forum for going on and on at length about it. If you want to write about it or come in the paper, we'll be happy to entertain it. But I don't want the whole night here to be about what our views are on particular industries. Yours have been heard, I think, fairly. Okay? Yes, Betsy.
I'm really not very informed about this, but I do understand that there are a number of people in Phillipstown, believe it or not, who are really in serious economic hardship. And the only thing I know so far is that the churches help in many different ways. Does the county also have any program that addresses people in serious economic need here in Phillipstown? If they don't, what would you suggest?
Well, I know the food pantry does a wonderful job of helping some of the people. I help raise money for the food pantry. As far as the county goes, the county does. Vinny, do you know of any programs? I don't know offhand.
There's assistance to people who can't afford electric. There are a number of issues through social services. And it's not my debate, but I would suggest anybody that has an issue call the county legislative office, county executive's office, and we could direct them for help.
Yeah, sure. Actually, there is a Department of Social Services in the county that does provide services for people with certain needs. I would have to definitely look into where the various areas are. I'm actually going through the budget now, but I met a young lady about a week and a half ago on one of my walks, and she told me that she has to go over to Carmel every Tuesday. I didn't get into any of the particulars, nor would I even talk about them in a public forum. But in a general sense, what she basically said to me was, I've got to go over to Carmel every Tuesday, sit in front of a computer and do whatever she's required to do for a couple of hours and then drive back. So she has gasoline, she has to find someone to take care of her young son and do that back and forth. Again, can we create a program to help someone like that young lady where she can maybe use the computer at Butterfield rather than going over to Carmel, and have her work done there. Social services could track whatever she's doing. There is tracking software. And rather than have her then deal with all of this in addition to the issues she is facing, that at least we can make her life a little easier. And again, that is something that I would look to work on if I'm elected to the county legislature.
And there again, Butterfield project. With the county services in this town, social services would be in this town. She wouldn't have to drive to Carmel, she would have it right there.
What I'm looking for here is, before I go to you, is someone came to see me not too long ago from this agency that I gather is responsible for delivering many of these services relating to everything from the things you're talking about to substance abuse to family situations. And I gather that this agency, this came as a surprise to me, I'm new and ignorant here, was to some degree separated from the formal departments of the county government and is administered on a quasi-private entity basis. I wondered if any of you have a feeling about how that has affected the availability and deliverability of services in these areas that are often the parts of government, having been what is now a deputy mayor for policy for the city of New York. This is the places people don't want to go. When these are poor, they're often problematic people, they have mental health issues. This is not the fun part of taking care of people within a democratic society. I'd be curious if any of you have any feelings about this in regard to your experiences or sense of whether or not this has been an effective way to handle it. I'm sure it's probably effective from the taxpayer point of view. I'm not sure. Actually, Vinny, I would even ask you for a second. Do you have a view on that?
I should have prepared for the debate tonight, I guess.
I regard this as an opportunity for information.
Yeah, no,
and other people have.
You know what?
view of
There's
this, I'd like
somebody
to hear
who's
it.
had first-hand experience here, and I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, it is a maze to work through. Government is not easy. There's red tape. Many of these are mandated programs, and unfortunately, the county social services departments hands are tied. They have to follow steps A, B, and C. But you just went over it, so you can talk about it.
I don't know necessarily what you're saying is accurate. I think that,
Well, that's why
I think to Steve's point, they are bringing you to remote locations when you're looking at every nickel and dime that you're trying to save, to meet mandates, to meet a criteria, to be able to get the help and assistance that you need. And I think that, to Barbara's point, it's extremely important in this particular area because it takes us quite a bit to get from that point A to point B, to have these services here locally, to be able to utilize the buildings like Butterfield that I'm sure Julia Butterfield would have loved to have heard at this particular point in time, in this economic situation that we're in, to be able to utilize her views, her reasons, her whole aura of what she stood for, to be able to use those services in her area would probably honor her. I know it would make the people of this county a lot happier to be able to have those services on the local level.
these folks were concerned about being able to provide them at all. There.
I think, I don't want to speak for Betsy, but I think the heart of her question was, what of those services are here? And I think the answer is none. I mean, I know we have a bit of the WIG program here, but what I find, and my question to the candidates would be, let me tell you what I find first with the people that I deal with every day. Tough economic times, usually that results in maybe sometimes you have problems with your kids, it results in some problems with the law, So you have these kids that are in this system now. There are none of those services here. Here these parents are working 3 jobs sometimes. But they've got to bring that troubled kid over to Carmel every night because that service isn't here. There's the, you know, children and family services, the WIC program that we do have occasionally here. But as far as I can see, the Medicaid services, the services that the people who are in great need are not here. They're all over in Carmel. So my questions to the candidates would be, what is the priority? What are the most important services to bring here, and how can we do it?
Well, I believe when they first started their discussions, the county, with the planning, and Vinnie was part of that, I was privy to some of that. All of the agencies in Putnam County were going to try to come, but at different days and sharing space. And, you know, of course, it wouldn't be feasible for everybody to come over. But the Women's Resource Center was going to come on one day. Emergency Services was going to use this office at this other one used. So they were all collaboratively going to use this one floor. And they had it all planned out. And I just hope that it comes to be a reality because we obviously really need it.
I think that's a great question, and I think it goes to what I had said earlier. While Butterfield is an excellent opportunity to bring county services over, that's long-term. I don't think the young woman with a young 3-year-old child can wait until Butterfield is built. That's why we need a short-term. And if we can look at some of the space, and as a county legislator, I would have that conversation with the town. I would bring it back and say, this is what the town of Phillipstown and Putnam Valley need. Let's see if we can move some of those services, even on a short-term 2-3-year lease until maybe Butterfield is built, so that young lady that I met doesn't have to wait. It is something that could be done in the next fiscal year. I'm convinced that that could be done in the next fiscal year.
Do you have room in your office, Richard?
Okay, yes.
Staying on that topic, Mr. Rosario, your ideas are very good about bringing county services over here as soon as possible. But we've heard the town hall is crowded, it's dilapidated, there's no space there. The Village of Cold Springs Village offices do not have the room. They need to be ADA compliant with their police department within the next 2 years. Where would you put these offices? What space is available, available, to put these offices in here? I mean, what space during the week on a typical 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 is available for those offices to be in right now?
Well, again, just riding around town, people are familiar with Phillipstown Square, or what I knew when I moved here as Perks Plaza. If you look at some of these empty spaces in that building, I think that that would be, certainly from an exploratory standpoint, let's look at those. And let's see if the county could lease some space in that building. There's an upper floor and a lower floor. We can certainly make some of the storefronts would automatically be ADA compliant, and we would have to see about the upper floors. But there's some space right there, and we should have some conversations about that. Again, it's a starting point. And what I'm trying to do is to offer a starting point that is more short-term.
Gentleman in the back, and then I'll come to you.
I'd like to go in a different tack. Some of the surrounding counties, there was a question or a comment before about incentivizing county employees to find savings. Yet some of these surrounding counties, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, now Ulster, are negotiating or insisting that their employee unions pay a percentage or somewhat of the cost of their benefits and health insurance. How do you feel about Putnam joining that group?
I think that's an idea that we should definitely explore. I think, although working in town hall and having to tell the town hall employees that they have to pay into their medical and they have to, it depends on the salary for me. It really depends on the level of the employee. I mean, some of these people are really struggling just to make ends meet now. And if you ask them to pay into anything else, I don't know how they can.
I think there are two issues there. One is on the pension side, and I think many of you know that pensions are protected and guaranteed by the state constitution. So in terms of pension, whatever people have currently, you cannot touch that. The governor and the state legislature passed a tier 6. So I think now we can start having some conversations about future employees that go into tier 6 about contributing, and I do support that. The question will be, it's generally subject to contract negotiations. When I was on the town board, I was one of the negotiators during contract negotiations. Health benefits, that's separate. That is not protected by the Constitution. And there again, I agree that everyone has to have skin in the game. And I think that you really appreciate what you have when you are part of a system that you now, if not control, but at least are now more aware, because now your money is going into that pot as well as the taxpayer money. So when you have skin in the game, you're going to be more cognizant of health costs and expenditures. So I do agree that it comes down to, is it going to be 5%, 10%, 15%? Again, that gets negotiated out. And I agree there is a difference between managerial and union workers.
Yeah, you had a...
Yeah, that was actually part of one of my questions. But the other question is, what is the stalemate? Why are we holding back? What is happening with Butterfield that we can't have all these programs there now? Why is this being held up? My father said that he's going to live until he sees that the seniors have a place, because that little hole in the wall there is just ridiculous. I mean, he's 97 now, and he's just going to hold on. I mean, we've had people fighting constantly for these seniors, and I'll be up there pretty soon too, you know. And I would like to know that we're going to have some place.
You have no idea how many people we're keeping alive, just like your father.
What is the stalemate? Why can't we use it?
I think we're getting bogged down by all the boards and the nitpicking, and just build it. Build it. Our community needs it.
So what do you say, Steve, about changing this so that we can get things rolling?
Well, again, the village government is a separate entity. Would I speak up at meetings? Absolutely. Would I contribute to them? But at the end of the day, the village can't tell the county what to do as much as they'd like to, and the county shouldn't be in a position to tell the village. But again, let's look at what we can do. We have a county planning department, and I'm really not even sure what they do. They have a couple of programs, but the county planning department should be the department that has the big picture vision. What do we want Putnam County to look like? What do we want to do in terms of helping the towns and the 3 villages? And what do they want to look like in 10, 15, or 20 years? And if we had a good planning department, I would bring them to Cold Spring. I would ask them to help the village to get through this process. Can't tell them what to do, but I would say, hey, let's see how we could work together. Let's see what resources that we can bring from the county planning department. Because I know it has been very frustrating. And on the senior center, I visited the senior center at the Friendship Center a week and a half ago. I just walked around, introduced myself. Boy, did I get an earful on the senior center. Well, there's absolutely no reason why we can't have one in Phillipstown.
I think it's time for the seniors to unite.
Well,
I was at the senior luncheon a few weeks ago, and it's all a buzz about where is it, where is it? I think they have to start being an advocate for this too.
Well, again, let's look at what resources we have. We have 3 agencies that deal with economic development. We have an industrial development agency that can no longer, unfortunately, fund not-for-profits. We have a community development corporation or agency. And then we have a local development corporation, which can help fund not-for-profits. Now, I don't know if the seniors are organized as a not-for-profit, but again, let's start the conversation with, can we bring in an LDC, a local development corporation, and Westchester uses theirs very effectively to help not-for-profits. And how can we use the LDC to match them up with the seniors so that we can begin that process of actually, finally, after 18 years of promises, in my view, broken promises, to create that senior center.
Well, we're coming up on, yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, I feel like we are a second-class town compared to the other towns. I look at Snake Hill Road. Why isn't that fixed? It's been, you know, from Hurricane Irene. So we're now 14 months in it, and yet the town roads have been fixed. And we don't have a senior center. I was promised one of the seniors that I'd bring this up. She said they've been told for years, it's coming, just lip service. Why are we second-class citizens? How can we get our equal billing with the rest of all the other towns in the county? Because it seems like they ignore us. We don't have transportation. You had mentioned transportation.
Transportation would be a plus. I know a lot of people that could certainly would love to get on a bus and go shopping or get on a bus, and that's something I would definitely advocate for. As far as Snake Hill is concerned, I spent an hour with Roger Cherico and Fred Penn from Carmel. They have just received the federal funds for this, FEMA funds. It has taken a terribly long amount of time to do that, and they understand that, but they finally do have the funds to fix that road. But unfortunately, Phillips Brook runs right near there, and that's a trout spawning stream, so you can't work in there from October to April. So unfortunately, it's going to have to remain like it is until the spring. But they have the funds, and they have the plan, and they will be working.
Somebody else?
Can I just respond to that question as well? Because that's an excellent question, one that I've been very frustrated because I use Snake Hill on a regular basis. And people may remember 1996 when the upper part of Snake Hill was completely washed away, and that was the larger part of the section of Snake Hill that crosses Phillips Brook. And back then, it took the county over a year to repair that. This is where forward thinking comes in. You would think that the highway department would have looked at the lower part of the roadway to see, does it make sense to look at that, see if it's structurally deficient, and whether or not it would be appropriate 10 years ago to have repaired that section of the road as well. Because today, 10 years or 12 years later, it is going to be much more expensive to fix that section of the road than it would have been 10 years ago. The second issue is, I agree, I don't think it should have taken this long. I don't think that the county was pounding FEMA hard enough and being the squeaky wheel. And when you look at Snake Hill and the condition that it's in, wait until winter comes. Now, I'm a member of the Garrison Fire Department, and every time there's an accident on 9 or 9D and we have to close one of those, do you know what havoc it creates when we have to detour traffic onto Snake Hill? It creates a second dangerous situation, not only for the men and women who are working a scene, but now we've got to worry about, are people going to fight trying to get past? And trust me, I've seen it.
Okay, we're coming up on the end. I want people to be able to ask questions, but I also don't want us to go too long. But
Can I just respond
yes,
a little
go
bit
ahead.
to that? I mean, I understand what you're saying about fixing one to another, but I don't agree with that at all. I mean, we had a hurricane, a mother of a hurricane, and that part of Snake Hill could have been just fine, but with all that came through with that hurricane, nothing was going to be safe down there. you had been down there at that time and seen the destruction from the Walter Hoving home all the way over, there's nothing going to help back that water. It wouldn't have been possible. And
That were
plus,
a town road, it'd be fixed by now though, because Roger Charco would have fixed it.
that's true. He's told me that already.
Okay,
That would have been
so,
done a year ago.
just to, so that we'll all be able to have, well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that will have to be it. So, in one order or another, okay, you can go
This
first.
is just
if
an
you're standing up.
observation. Roger's repairing roads on Fraser Road. It's the same Hillsbrook that goes down to where the need for repair is further down. So the trout are all in the same flow. So either Phillipstown is in trouble or Putnam County is
We're not working in the stream.
using the trout.
They're not
Okay,
working in the
We're working
stream.
in the stream.
They have to divert
Right.
the stream. They have to build another stream next to the stream and divert the water.
Okay, that has, we got 3 more.
Yeah, this is off a different subject than
Go
the
ahead.
roads. I think one of the things probably a little later, but equally as important, is the question of tourism and bringing tourism into the Phillipstown area. We live in a jewel of an area. I've traveled all over the world. I'm happy to call myself now a permanent resident of Cold Spring. But if you walk up and down Main Street and you go into any of the shops, they'll say that they're struggling for lack of tourists coming into the area. What do each one of the candidates plan on doing to boost tourism into, particularly Cold Spring, because that's what's near and dear to my heart, but the Phillipstown area? So I'd just like to hear from
To
them.
the extent that a county representative from Phillipstown can help in that area, I think we all agree help is needed, and
Help is needed.
so is there anything you think you could do in this position to deal with something that I think we all would like to see more of? And we have someone here who's doing that full-time for us
Yes,
now.
yes. Cold
She wants to see
Spring,
it too, so what would you do to help her?
well, I can't wait to help her. And Cold Spring is the gateway to tourism in Putnam County. 80% of the tourists come through Cold Spring first before they go anywhere else. We are just scratching the surface of tourism. Did anyone go to the bike race on Sunday? Ryan, he actually pedaled in that. I don't know how you did that. 188 bikers. It was a scene, a wonderful scene to behold. All of them going up the hill, up. It was amazing. It was amazing. But what was even better for us is they all brought their families, and these families were going up and down Main Street, having lunch in the pizza place, going to Catherine's, the Depot, shopping in our stores. These are the things that this woman is planning, and I can't wait to be part of that vision. I think she's dead on, and she's got so many great ideas that will really boost our economy, and tourism is the way to go. We live in such a beautiful, historic area. We have only just tapped tourism.
Yes, no, absolutely. There's no question that Phillipstown and the western part of Putnam County is a jewel. As I mentioned earlier, that's part of the reason why my wife and I moved up here. And I said this at the first debate. I'm glad that after 18 years, the county has finally discovered us, and that they're going to be doing some work on this side of the county to promote this jewel. But there are a couple of things that need to be done. First, you need some kind of plan. You just can't throw it out there and say Phillipstown and Putnam Valley and Putnam County are great, 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 great. We know that because we live here. But you have to do something that would include how do you promote the town and the county? How do you market the town and the county? How do you brand the county and the towns? And that all has to be looked at very carefully and planned out well. The second thing that I think you need is your metrics. I've been in the private sector. At the end of every year, I go through a performance evaluation to measure whether or not I've been successful. any tourism program that we have here in the county, at the end of the day, we have to ask the question, was it successful? Certainly the Cycle Classic has been a boom, and that's been around for quite a number of years, and it was started by Valerie Hickman, Judge Barrett Hickman's wife, when she was tourism director. And that's been a great success. We have to start looking at some other programs. I'm not aware of too many other programs that have been this successful. And if my math is correct, based on the entrance fees, we probably made about $17,000. I hope we get some of that money back into Cold Spring and Phillipstown, because that's where the race started. But let me give you another issue, and it is demonstrative of the mindset on the county legislature. Earlier this year, the county legislature was going to send up a resolution to Albany requesting authorization to impose a hotel tax on a hotel that we ain't got in Putnam County yet. So they're already thinking taxes and increasing taxes. Well, eventually the county legislature rescinded that because it did not make sense. Bed and breakfasts would have been excluded. But if you're going to attract people, tourists, the first thing you don't do is hit them with more taxes. And the second issue is and I think this goes for all of us, when we have family and I can't put up everyone in the house, I've got to put them someplace. We send them up to Fishkill or to Hotel Thayer. They can't stay on this side of the county. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed, because the day trippers are great, but the real money is in the people who stay 2 and 3 nights.
Okay, we have 2 more, and so let's try to keep our questions tight and our answers as well. Okay, Sue and Joyce. Okay.
I think when Tom brought up his question at the beginning, he phrased it in a very strange way, and but I think the question was a very legitimate one if it's posed to both candidates, and that is because our water supply is directly affected by what happens in the Catskills when we are in a drought situation here in Cold Spring. And so we actually tap the Catskill Ashokan water supply. And that water supply is under threat if they choose to frack in that area. So it is a very special issue for this side of the county only. So it would be very important for our legislative representation to address that and be able to stand behind us if something were to happen or if we are going the way of the fracking. So what my question is to Barbara, how do you see that issue and what side of the fence are you on with it?
No problem. First of all, fracking is prohibited in Putnam County, partly due to our reservoirs, which puts the question right away. There's a danger. My most concern right now is the fracking wastewater, the brine. Each fracking well produces 1 million gallons of this liquid, this wastewater. This is laced with highly corrosive salts, benzene, radioactive elements like radium, plus a lot of things that I can't pronounce. Sewage plants are not designed to treat this water. So they've come up with this idea that they're going to spread it on the roads. I think that's a horrible idea. When we look at our roads in Putnam County, how many streams are right next door? I just fear for our aquifer. I feel fracking chemicals in our water supply is just a dangerous situation. And I plan, when I go to become the legislator, to ban any kind of brine on any roads in the county, in the village, in the town.
Well, let me just state that fracking is not going to take place here in Putnam County. Putnam County is not in the Marcellus Shale, nor is it in the Utica Shale. And I think it's important to recognize that because it is a very controversial issue. Obviously, the standards must be set very high when talking about the health, and safety of our citizens and of children. So the real issue is the use of the brine solution. Now, again, I don't think that the county has to wait for me or Barbara to get on the county legislature. We have a county executive who is the boss of the highway superintendent. She could issue a directive saying no. And the commissioner, unless he wants to lose his job, would comply. So that issue should be taken off the table, and I would recommend that the county executive tell the highway commissioner, don't use. Let me take it one step further. What if the county executive does it, and it does come before the legislature? I think the health of our citizens is paramount, and I would have no problems voting to ban its use. Simple as that.
Okay, and we'll come to our last question before on this topic. I'm sorry Tom was upset. He's an advertiser, so I may have just lost revenue, the paper and other things.
And
but,
you know you have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There goes Sarman. There was another.
Tell him to watch it online.
Yeah, but it's. But I think this was a very appropriate way to put the question. And I was also willing to entertain a question whose thrust was: do you feel that candidate Rosario's professional affiliations would create a conflict of interest? I was okay with one question. I just did not want this entire session to turn into that. I think we've handled this issue quite well. I'm sorry if Tom was offended personally, and if any of you know him better than I do, see if you can talk him into not canceling his ads.
Would he matter if I talk to him? I don't think so.
The motto I stole from Arthur Oakes, who took it to the New York Times in 1896, continues to move me deeply very much, which is without fear or favor, and that's what I'll just have to try to do, even if it costs me money. I think, Joyce, you have the last word or question.
I have to preface this by saying that you're looking at a very upset person. I just spent the last, well, let's see.
Could you speak up a little bit? I don't
Yes,
think you might want to stand so you can.
I don't think I have the strength. Today I spent 4.5 hours in jail. I just came, a state trooper drove me here because I had no way to get from Carmel here, and it was very important for me to be here tonight. So I'm just prefacing this, and please excuse me if you find what I'm going to say strange in any way. I don't know if all of you have been following this, but there has been tree cutting, very terrible tree cutting by Central Hudson all over town. There was an incident on South Mountain Pass a couple of weeks ago where I got involved because they were just severely trimming and they stopped trimming. Today they came back, and today they came back with an army. They had 5 huge vehicles with the things that go up supposedly to trim, only as usual they were not trimming. And they were slicing trees down to the bottom of the ground. I heard this at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's why I'm dressed like this, getting into a shower. I ran down, I heard the noise. I asked the guys quite politely, please trim, don't clear cut. These guys had an attitude that I have never seen before, and they knew, unfortunately, who I was and about the former incident. I ran back to my house and I tried to call every neighbor I could think of, and nobody answered their phone. I called the town supervisor's office much later in the morning, and no one returned the call. I was on my own, except that a neighbor of mine came down the road while this incident was occurring and stood and talked to the men at Central Hudson, and then got back in her car, and I mentioned to her that this day was a horrible day for this to be taking place. That neighbor got into her car while I was standing there surrounded by guys with chainsaws and drove away. that neighbor was Barbara Scucciamaro. I was left with 5 guys with chainsaws, more than 5 guys with chainsaws, who literally, as I approached one tree that I was trying to salvage in some way, they went, laughed, and went and cut down another tree. I wish someone was filming this because you folks would not believe this incident. And ultimately, I was arrested. And the funny thing, if I could laugh about this, was it was trying to save one of Barbara Scucciamaro's trees. We have been neighbors for 30 years. I cannot tell you how upset I am tonight. And my question is, what do the 2 candidates think about the aggressive tree cutting in town?
Joyce, I'm sorry. I don't think this is the place for me to defend myself.
Barbara, I'm terribly sorry. I know this is a terrible thing, but I just
Your
spent
perception,
the afternoon in
and
jail.
I'm sorry. And I'm sorry.
You're trying to save your
Joyce,
tree.
you asked a question, so I think
Yes.
you should let
Your
Barbara respond.
perception of what was going on and mine are 2 different.
Then
I see
won't
these
answer.
people doing their job. They're working for the electric company. They have the right of way on the properties. They're trimming the trees so our power does not go out. Yes, at times do I think they're overzealous? Yes. But they're doing their job. I stood there, I talked to them. They said how worried they were about you because you kept getting under the machines. That's why they were calling the sheriff, because they were concerned. I did not see the aggression that you did. I talked to them, and they were more concerned with you than you think.
They stopped the aggression when you showed up, and they probably would have stopped.
But
if you
I
would
do
have
not
given
think,
them thought.
Joyce, that this is the place for this.
And I have to agree beyond this point. You have aired it, as others have aired specific concerns, and then this is for other forums.
I agree, and I preface it by saying I am extremely upset, extremely upset.
Can I just at least offer something? I'm very sorry for what happened today, and certainly tree clear cutting has been an issue in Phillipstown. Certainly it was back when I was on the town board, and I'm sorry about what happened to you today. But in terms of trying to address the issue going forward, because obviously we have a lot of tree cutting that could occur on my road. I live on Phillipsbrook, on Old Albany Post Road, up in the North Highlands, on any road. What can the county do? Well, again, let's look at some potential resources that the county has. We have the Putnam County Cornell Extension Program. There's a program called Master Gardeners. And as part of Master Gardeners, they have access to people who are arborists. What about if we got the town together with Central Hudson to work out with Cornell Extension to create a plan that would address their needs, which are valid. I mean, obviously, people know that when wires go down, you lose your electricity, you're not very happy. But there's also a good way of doing things and a bad way of doing things. I prefer the good, and we can involve Putnam County Cornell Extension and the Master Gardener, and we've got Master Gardeners in this community. I'm proud to say my wife is one of them, and she went through the program. So, again, I always try and look for the solutions and how we can work together with the town and the villages and the county to address these issues.
Okay, we're over the time I thought we would take for this, so I would like to just return it for a moment before we close to the question of the opening, and just have you each, if you care to, make a short closing comment, which really comes down to why am I running for this office, and why should I be your representative, which is my last one.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thanks for .info for having this forum. In closing, I want you all to remember that I believe in people before politics. I will be there to work, to to listen to all sides of an issue. We will work together to find solutions. Solutions to property taxes, they must be controlled through reduced spending. The county, like all our family budgets, must be trimmed. Solutions for our businesses. Putnam needs to become more business friendly. We must be a place where businesses want to settle. But close to my heart is our environment. It must always be preserved. We need to be village of stewards for our surroundings, and they must never be compromised. And that's why I think you should vote for me, because of my ideas. I look forward to it.
Again, I want to thank Phillips.info and the paper for holding tonight's forum. And I also want to thank all of you for coming out and asking some very, very good questions. That is truly the essence of our process. And that process does not end this evening. If either one of us get elected, it really is up to you to hold our feet to the fire. I have tried to elevate this campaign, and I thank my opponent for sticking to the issues, because I know how hard it is to get good people to run for office. And we are quite fortunate in that, and I hope Barbara doesn't mind me saying this, that we do have two good candidates here. And I have tried to propose ideas and solutions throughout my discussion this evening. I'm not a career politician. Yes, I served on the town board, but if I were a career politician, I wouldn't have waited 10 years to run for office again. I'm in a good position where I could bring my skills from the private sector, from the not-for-profit sector, and from my government experience to this office, and to raise the level of recognition and representation for Phillipstown, to be a voice where none has existed for 18 years. And that's why I thank all of you, and I hope you will support my candidacy for county legislature. Thank you.
We've heard from everybody, I think, tonight, and for my part, having been in so many national things, I find it very moving to be here, and I think whatever happens will be well represented, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.